The mysteries of this world are becoming easier to solve day by day as technology gets more advanced. This makes mysteries that we can't solve just that more interesting. We're here to cover these stories and possibly lead the unsolved to be a little bit more solved. This is Unresolved Weekly.
In May 2002, Alexis Patterson went missing. On May 2nd, Alexis had an argument with her mom. She walked to school angry the next day. Her classmates reported seeing her standing outside crying. She didn't attend any classes that day. After school, she was seen again crying on the playground, talking to an unidentified woman. That was the last time she was seen. 2 weeks before, a person had tried to abduct a boy outside of the school. Alexis had been seen talking to a woman after school. Her teacher talked to her and warned her against talking to strangers, but Alexis didn't listen to her. The day she went missing, police searched the neighborhood. They questioned Alexis's dad, who didn't seem to know anything, and they questioned her stepdad, who became so angry with police that he stopped talking to them. A volunteer charity was even started for Alexis, but was closed a few months later due to a lack of funds and interest. In 2016, after seeing an age-progressed picture of Alexis, a man stepped forward. He claimed it was a spitting image of his ex, who was said to have a mysterious past. The woman took a DNA test and was proven not to be Alexis. Police suspect Alexis's stepdad to be a suspect. But the police allegedly have reason to believe that he didn't walk Alexis to school that day. This wouldn't necessarily make him a suspect, but it would be a weird thing to lie about. About the same time Alexis was missing, Elizabeth Smart was taken. The media focused on her 24/7 and made people question why Alexis wasn't getting talked about. It completely drew the attention away from her case, so much so that Alexis was nicknamed the other missing girl. If Elizabeth hadn't been reported on as much, more resources could have been put into solving Alexis's case. To this day, Alexis's case has not been solved, and we're left to wonder, could she have been found if she had received just a little more attention?
The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was constructed under the guidance of art collector Isabella Stewart Gardner to house her personal art collection. The museum opened to the public in 1903, and Gardner continued to expand the collection and arrange it until she died in 1924. She left the museum with a $3.6 million endowment, and her will stipulated that the arrangement of the artwork should not be altered and no items were to be sold or bought into the collection. By the 1980s, the museum was running low on funds. After the Federal Bureau of Investigation uncovered a plot by Boston criminals to rob the museum in 1982, the museum allocated funds to improve security. More security guards were hired, and mechanisms were created to quickly notify police of any disturbances. In the early hours of Sunday, March 18, 1990, two men were disguised as police officers and parked in a hatchback on Palace Road. Witnesses believed them to actually be policemen. The first witness was around 12:30 a.m. The museum guards on duty that night were Rick Abbott, age 23, and Randy Heston, age 25. Abbott was a regular night watchman, and it was Heston's first time on the night shift. The security policy maintained that one guard patrolled the galleries with a flashlight and walkie-talkie, while the other sat at the security desk. Abbott went on patrol first. During his patrol, fire alarms sounded off in different rooms in the museum, but he could not locate any fire or smoke. Abbott returned to the security room where the fire alarm control panel indicated smoke in multiple rooms. He assumed some type of malfunction and shut down the panel. He went back on patrol, and before he completed his rounds, made a quick stop at the side entrance of the museum, briefly opening the side door and shutting it again. He did not tell Hastan he was doing this, or why. Abeth completed his tour and returned to the security desk around 1 o'clock a.m., at which point Hastan began his rounds. At 1:20 a.m., the two men drove up to the side entrance, parked, and walked up the side door. They explained to Abeth that they were police investigating a disturbance and needed to be buzzed in. Abeth could see them on the closed-circuit television wearing what appeared to be real police uniforms. He was not aware of any disturbance, but theorized that, as it was St. Patrick's Day, perhaps someone had climbed over the fence and someone had seen this and reported it. Abeth let the men in at 1:24 a.m. The two were let into a locked foyer that separated the side door from the museum. They approached Abeth at his desk and asked if anyone else was in the museum and to bring them down. Abeth radioed Hastan to return to the security desk. Abeth noticed around this time that the mustache on the taller man appeared fake. The shorter man told Abeth that he looked familiar, that they may have a warrant for his arrest, and to come out from behind the desk and provide identification. Abeth complied, stepping away from the desk where the only panic button to alert the police was. The shorter man forced Abeth against a wall, spread his legs, and handcuffed him. Abeth noticed that he was not frisked. Hastan walked into the room around this time, and the taller man turned him around and handcuffed him. Once both of the guards were handcuffed, these two men revealed that they were actually thieves and gave away their true intentions to rob the museum and asked the guards to not give them any problems. The thieves' movements through the museum were recorded on infrared motion detectors. As the thieves approached the paintings in the Dutch room, a device began beeping that would normally trip when a patron was too close to a painting. The thieves smashed it. The thieves eventually took all of these pieces. As they prepared to leave, the thieves checked on the guards one last time and asked if they were comfortable. They then moved to the security director's office, where they took the video cassettes that recorded their entrance on the closed-circuit cameras and the data printouts from the motion detecting equipment. The movement data was still captured on a hard drive, which remained untouched. The frame for this piece was left at the security director's desk. The thieves then moved to take the artwork out of the museum. The side entrance doors were opened once at 2:40 a.m. and again for the last time at 2:45 a.m. The robbery lasted 81 total minutes. The next shift of guards arrived later in the morning and realized something was amiss when they could not establish contact with anyone inside to be let in. They called in the security director who, upon entering the building with his keys, found nobody at the watch desk and called police. The police searched the building until they found the guards still tied up in the basement.
The FBI took immediate control of the case on the ground that the artwork could likely cross the state lines. Investigators have called the case unique for its lack of strong physical evidence. The thieves did not leave behind footprints or hair, and it's inconclusive if the fingerprints left at the scene were from the thieves or from the museum employees. Security guard Rick Abeth was investigated early on because of his suspicious behavior on the night of the theft. When on his patrol, Abeth briefly opened and shut a side door, a move some believe could have been a signal to the thieves parked outside. Abeth told authorities that he did this routinely to ensure the door was locked. One of Abeth's colleagues told journalists that if Abeth had opened the door routinely as he mentioned, supervisors would have seen it on computer printouts and put a stop to it. More suspicion has been drawn from the museum's motion detectors, which did not detect any movement in the Blue Room, which housed Ches Trotani, during the 81 minutes the thieves were in the museum. The only footsteps in the room that night were Abeth's during the security protocol. A security consulate reviewed the motion detector equipment several weeks after the theft, and determined that they were operating correctly. Avith maintains his innocence, and the FBI agent overseeing this case in its early years determined that the guards were too incompetent and foolish to have pulled off the crime. In 2015, the FBI released a security video from the museum on the night before the theft, showing Avith buzzing in an unidentified man into the museum to converse at the security desk. Avith told investigators that he could not recall the innocence or recognize the man, and so the FBI requested the public's assistance. Several former museum guards came forward and said the stranger was Avith's boss, the museum deputy security chief. Whitey Bulger was one of the most powerful crime bosses in Boston during the era, heading the Winter Hill Gang. He claimed he did not organize the heist, and in fact, he sent his agents out in an attempt to determine who did because the robbery was committed on his turf, and he wanted to be paid tribute. FBI agent Thomas McShane investigated Bulger for his involvement. He determined that Bulger's strong ties with the Boston police could have explained how the thieves acquired legitimate police uniforms, or perhaps that the police were arranged to do the heist. Bulger also had relations with the Irish Republican Army. McShane identified the bogus tripping of the fire alarm ahead of the heist as a calling card of the IRA and the rival Ulster Volunteer Force. Both organizations had agents in Boston at the time, and both had demonstrated capability in the past of pulling off art heists. McShane's investigation of Bulger and the IRA did not produce any evidence to tie them to the theft. According to Charlie Hill, a retired art and antiques investigator for Scotland Yard, Bulger gave the Gardner works to the IRA and are most likely in Ireland. Museum director Anne Hawley received an anonymous letter from someone who claimed to be attempting to negotiate a return of the artwork. The writer explained that they were a third-party negotiator and did not know the identity of the thieves. They explained that the artwork was stolen to reduce any prison sentence, but as the opportunity had passed, there was no longer a motive to keep the artwork and they wanted to negotiate a return. The writer explained that the artwork was being held in a non-common law country under climate-controlled conditions. They wanted immunity for themselves and all others involved, and $2.6 million for the return of the artwork, which would be sent to an offshore bank account at the same time that the art was handed over. If the museum was interested in negotiating, they should print a coded message in the Boston Globe. To establish credence, the writer convoyed information only known by the museum and the FBI at the time. Holloway felt this was a strong lead. She contacted the FBI, who then contacted the Globe, and the coded message was printed on May 1st, 1994 edition of the Boston Globe. Holloway received a letter a few days later in which the writer acknowledged the museum was interested in negotiating, but had become fearful of what they perceived was a massive investigation by federal and state authorities to determine their identity. The writer explained that they needed time to evaluate their options, but Holloway never heard from the writer again. Brian McDevitt was a conman from Boston who attempted and failed to rob a Hyde collection in Glens Falls, New York in 1981. He dressed up as a FedEx driver, carried handcuffs and duct tape, and planned to steal the Rembrandt. He was also a known flag aficionado, and fit the description of the larger robber except for his thinning red hair. The parallels to the Gardner case fascinated the FBI, so they interviewed him in late 1990. McDevitt denied any involvement and refused to take a polygraph test. The FBI ran his fingerprints, which did not match any of those at the crime scene. McDevitt moved to California after and conned his way into television and film writing. He died in 2004. Many others have been investigated, but something is very amiss. Hello everyone, I hope you enjoyed the stories we shared with you today. If not, check by next week, there might be something more interesting for you then. If you have any story suggestions, let us know by commenting. We'll be more than happy to look over them. I'm Bruce.
I'm Jim.
I'm Chris.
And this has been
Unresolved Weekly.